probably are getting some pretty nice weather too.
Hey, we're live on Facebook. I see it.
Oh.
We are live. Hello, Canada.
Hello, Canada. Hello.
Hello,
Bonjour.
hello. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Terry Godwell, and I am super pumped to be hanging out with Canadians from coast to coast to coast as we connect and spend an hour with Minister McKenna, and we connect to youth who are sharing their passionate stories. So this is an exciting time to come together as a country, and to get us started, we're going to pass the microphone over to our friends at Green Learning. Green Learning, over to you.
Hi everyone, thanks. Welcome everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Today is an exciting day because we're celebrating the work of 500 students from across Canada and the plan for action on climate change that you've developed. We're so honored to have Minister McKenna with us today, as well as many other special guests, to hear your ideas. And this is an opportunity for you to gather the minister's feedback on your work from her perspective of what's going on in communities across Canada. Importantly, though, the calls for action that you've developed are not just for Minister McKenna, but are for each one of us. Your work has highlighted that we all need to be part of the solution, whether it's a change in your own behavior or something you believe should change at your school, in your community, in the corporate sector, etc. You need to make your voice heard. Today is just the beginning. Aujourd'hui, c'est une journée spéciale parce que nous célébrons le travail de 500 étudiants de partout au Canada et le plan d'action sur le changement climatique que vous avez développé. Les écrivains étudiants ont fait de leur mieux pour honorer le travail de vous tous et ils ont se concentré sur 15 appels à l'action qui sont pratiques, compréhensifs et inspirants. Nous sommes honorés d'avoir la ministre McKenna avec nous aujourd'hui, ainsi que de nombreux autres invités spéciaux pour entendre vos idées, et c'est une occasion pour vous d'obtenir ses commentaires et son feedback sur ceci. Il est important de noter que les appels à l'action que vous avez développés ne sont pas seulement pour la ministre McKenna, mais sont pour chacun de nous. Votre travail a mis en évidence que nous devons tous faire partie de la solution, que ce soit un changement dans votre comportement ou quelque chose qui doit changer dans votre école ou dans votre communauté, dans le secteur commercial et ainsi de suite. Vous devez faire entendre votre voix. Aujourd'hui, ce n'est que le début. Terry?
Thank you so very much, Mary. And so I'm joining you from Alberta. The minister is in Ontario. Now we're going to hop across to Manitoba and hear from Hannah, who's joining us from Carman Collegiate. Hannah, over to you to introduce our minister. Go ahead.
Thank you, Terry. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Petrie. I am a student writer, and I currently attend Carman Collegiate. As a student writer, I had the privilege to represent hundreds of students across all of Canada. We're all working towards one goal, focusing on our concern of climate change. This experience was greatly appreciated as I got to work with great people. Thank you to all the students across Canada for providing us with well-written inquiries. Minister McKenna, we all appreciate and thank you for this opportunity to share our work with you and exchange remarks. The compiled calls of actions are broad, covering all sections of society, not just the Government of Canada. Today we will share 3 of our topics with you, including transportation, green energy, and waste. All of us are tomorrow's climate action leaders. We are grateful and look forward to hearing your advice and thoughts on how we, as in the Government of Canada, individuals, corporations, and communities, can take effective action, but also how we, Canada's youth, can be effective leaders. Catherine McKenna practiced competition and international trade law in Canada and Indonesia and was a senior negotiator with the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission in East Timor. She also served as a senior advisor on the former Chief Justice Antonio Lamer's review of Canada's military justice system. Catherine co-founded Canadian Lawyers Abroad, a charitable organization that works in developing countries with Indigenous communities in Canada. She served as executive director on the Banff Forum, a public policy organization for young leaders. Catherine taught at the Monk School of Global Affairs. Catherine and her husband live in Ottawa with 3 children. She was elected on October 19, 2015, and was appointed Minister of Government and Climate Change on November 4, 2015. Minister McKenna, over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Hannah. It's awesome to have that really kind introduction. And thanks very much, Mary, and for Green Learning. I think it's really awesome that you're doing a town hall today, that we can connect virtually with so many students across Canada, but also that you're doing some great work throughout the year. Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Je sais, j'ai des amis francophones ici, alors je vais essayer de parler en français aussi. So you heard my bio, and I'm very excited about how we can make a difference in the world. That's always been my passion. And I think that we have no bigger challenge than climate change. And I think you said, like, we're the climate action leaders of tomorrow, but actually you're the climate action leaders of today. And I know that because I have spent a lot of time talking to young people across the country. You guys are a bit older, but I have a Pinky Promise campaign. So when I meet young kids, I say, you know, when they're excited and tell me their ideas, I make them do a Pinky Promise. So they make sure their parents and grandparents take action on climate change, because young people want to act. The ones I've talked to care greatly about our planet and are worried about what's happening with the changing climate, but sometimes their parents and grandparents aren't as keen. So it's good to have young people out there. Hopefully you know que notre Premier ministre, c'est pas seulement le Premier ministre, c'est le ministre des Jeunes. Our Prime Minister is not just the Prime Minister, he's also the Minister for Youth. And that's because he believes that it's one of the most important things that we need to do is work with young people to find solutions, because it's all about your future. I have 3 kids. They'll be very mad when they hear I did this because they'd like to participate. But I think it's just really exciting that you guys are going to present some really great ideas in some really big areas that I need solutions. So you're talking about transportation. We know we need to do better. We have a lot of greenhouse gas emissions that come from the transportation sector. We know we need better energy sources that are clean. And we know that waste is a problem, but it also can be part of the solution. So I'm very excited in hearing all of your ideas. And I always say the environment and the economy go together. It's not that, you know, if we act on the environment, we're going to ruin our economy. It's actually, if we don't act on the environment, we're going to ruin our economy because we won't have good jobs. We'll have ruined our planet. And so I think this is a huge opportunity. C'est une grande opportunité de travailler ensemble pour trouver des solutions qui vont faire une grande différence et vont créer de bons emplois pour les jeunes, pour le futur. When I talk to young people and I say, what do you want to do with your life? And I keep on having, I think it's kind of funny because I keep on changing what I want to do with my life. I'm now in politics, but young people often they say, I want a job that's meaningful. I want a job that's going to help save our planet. And I think that that's really great. And I think the jobs of the future, or even jobs of today, are actually doing that. And I think it's a huge opportunity when we take action on climate change. We're positioning ourselves to create really great jobs, and the jobs that I know young people are very interested in doing, because they'll be good jobs that'll help them earn some money, obviously, but also good jobs because they'll help make sure that we have a more sustainable planet. I've worked really hard on this climate change file, but there's so much more work to do, and I know we can do a lot more together. So I'm not going to say anything more. Je veux entendre vos idées. Je suis vraiment intéressée. Je vais vous donner du feedback, mais je sais que ça va me donner une nouvelle passion pour ce qu'on peut faire. When I hear your ideas, I always get really excited because it makes me just so optimistic that together we're going to be able to tackle climate change and make sure we have a more sustainable planet for you guys, for my kids, and for everyone, and especially our Indigenous peoples, because we need to be doing a lot more. I, in fact, will just say that I met with Inuit today, Inuit leaders. The Arctic is melting. Hunters are going through the ice. We need to be working with Indigenous peoples across our country because often they feel the greatest impacts of climate change. They want to be part of the solution. They need to be part of the solution. And there's so much that we can learn from our Indigenous peoples. But on that, I'm going to stop and let you guys tell me all your awesome ideas.
Hey, well, thank you so very much, Minister, for getting us started, getting us excited, getting us pumped. And talking about pumped, we're going to get even more pumped when we hear from Grace, who's joining us from the Alberta Distance Learning Centre in Alberta to talk about transitions to the green economy. Grace, over to you.
Hi, thanks so much, Terry, for that introduction. My name is Grace Liu. I'm from ADLC and I'm from Calgary, Alberta. Here we climate action students, we really focused on many climate change topics, but energy was one of the one that really stood out to us. So here we have transitioned to a green energy economy. Energy is something that all Canadians use. It drives our economy, our technology, and our livelihoods. Yet at the same time, it's a really complex issue. So we students wanted to investigate this issue and examine how we can transition to a green energy economy. Fossil fuels and climate change. We all know that fossil fuels are the primary source of greenhouse gas emissions. The above illustrates how one component of this one sector, the oil sands, is having an impact on our climate. So greenhouse gas emissions from Canada's oil sands are projected to increase by 124%, or 64 megatons between 2010 and 2030, to reach about 150 megatons. Not only this, but it's also hurting our water resources. Oil sands remove about 370 million cubic meters of water from the Athabasca River each year, nearly twice as much water as Calgary uses in 1 year. Not only is this hurting our environment, our water resources, but it's also hurting our human health, biodiversity, and our quality of life. At the same time, however, we know that the oil and gas sector, and the oil sands in particular, are a significant component of our economy. As we can see from the chart, the oil and gas industry contributes to the overall GDP of Alberta the most. The Canadian Association of Petroleum Products Producers states that there are 3,400 companies in Canada that supply Alberta's oil sands industry, and about one half of these are in Ontario. The oil sands provided direct employment for 151,000 people just in 2015. For example, I'm from Alberta, and my father works in the oil and gas industry, and I, for one, can tell how much wealth and prosperity Alberta has gained just from the oil and gas industry alone. Alberta has benefited tremendously, yet at the same time, oil is a non-renewable resource, meaning that these outcomes will not last forever. We Climate Action 150 students did a lot of research in this area, and we collaborated to come up with solutions towards these problems. We are proposing a 50-year plan to transition to green energy economy. We came up with 3 broad actions that will help us achieve this goal. It will take at least 50 years to completely phase out of the oil and gas industry, and we need to start now. So number 1, educate the youth for jobs in a green energy economy. Number 2, promoting growth in the green energy sector. And number 3, supporting development of net zero energy homes and electric vehicles. Regarding number 1, school curriculums could be better altered to better emphasize the importance of green learning's initiatives, values, and would get the younger generations more involved in caring for the environment. As well, grants and scholarships could be offered to students entering fields in the green energy and green energy economy. We can use money from the carbon tax or the carbon levy or other tax breaks or other sources to better prepare the younger generation for these types of jobs. Adding on from number 1, we step into number 2, promoting the growth of the green energy sector. With a new educational curriculum from K to 12, and by supporting energy and environmental startups, existing companies will begin to develop green energy technologies, and then, therefore, we will start a chain reaction. A recent statistic showed that jobs in the green energy sector not only manifest more jobs for a nation, but create them a lot more faster and more efficiently. This was from CBC. For instance, in 2014, from the Globe and Mail, green energy sector jobs in Canada surpassed the total oil sands employment rate. With advancements in technology seemingly increasing day by day, the green energy sector will become much bigger and bigger. And last but not least, we step into number 3, net zero energy homes and electric cars. This net zero energy home exists now in Calgary, but I'm from Calgary and haven't even noticed them before. Creating more awareness for these types of jobs will jumpstart a more prosperous Alberta and Canada. Thank you very much, Minister McKenna, and I do hope you'll take these objectives into consideration. Thank you.
So that was awesome. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk now, or are we going to go? Do we want to talk about this, or do we go into the next? We go into the next project.
Absolutely. If you have a question or two you'd like to throw over there to Grace in Alberta, that would be great, Minister.
Well, thank you, Grace. I think that was an amazing presentation. I think that you get that the environment and the economy go together, and that, you know, the oil sands is it creates a lot of wealth, but we also know we need to move to a low carbon future, and we need to do that in a smart and thoughtful way. So I am very excited when the 3 areas that you talked about for your plan as part of your 50-year plan to move to a cleaner future. So educating and training youth for green jobs. So we just announced that for our summer jobs program, that a very significant number of jobs are going to be green jobs. And I think that's something we know young people, as I said before, are super excited about green jobs. So that is really important, and providing young people with the training they need. So I think that's great, because I think often, I remember being young, I'm not so young anymore, but not knowing what jobs were out there. I mean, that's a big challenge. If you don't know, like, you know, kind of interesting, cool jobs that you could be doing, an area that you're passionate about, if it's the environment, then it's very hard for you to go and get the skills you need. So I think that's awesome. Promoting growth in the green energy sector. So I think about this a lot. And in fact, our budget, it was called an innovation budget, but I would call it a green innovation budget, because what we've looked at is, how do we create incentives? How does the government provide support, financial support and incentives for new technologies, greener technologies? So I think that's going to be really, really important. And when I go across the country, I see amazing innovations. In fact, there's a company called Carbon Cure that's from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, that what they do is they take carbon dioxide from industry, which we don't want, and then they inject it into concrete, which makes stronger concrete, and it also reduces the emissions from the concrete. So it's totally awesome innovation, and it's being used now by cement companies all over the world. And that was actually, just for all of you out there that are thinking about what you're going to do in the future, this was an idea that came out of a university student. He did some work on this. He thought that this was an interesting area, and it was as a result of his research that he was able to start this company. So how cool is that? And we need entrepreneurs. So I'm very excited about that. And I know in Alberta, many entrepreneurs are there. The last thing is totally spot on, supporting net zero buildings and vehicles. And I got to see Landmark Homes, one of their houses that actually produces energy. And it's funny, because I think sometimes you guys are too young, maybe, but do you know the Jetsons, the TV show The Jetsons? I don't know.
I know the Jetsons, but I'm old.
But the Jetsons, anyway, it was a show I used to watch as a kid. It was a cartoon show. And it was like this futuristic world where everyone is in spaceships and everything's like a little weird, but cool. The problem is, if you start talking like everything that we're trying to do is the Jetsons, no one really thinks it's going to happen. But when you see Landmark Homes, that you see these houses that look like regular suburban homes, but you go inside and you realize that they're producing energy. So instead of spending any money, you're actually making money by producing energy that other people use. I mean, that's just how we should be doing things. That's just being smart. We live in a really cold climate, so we should build well and build good houses. And so that's something that's a real priority of mine. We have a new building code that we're looking at that. But Grace, I think that those are really awesome ideas. And I guess my question to you would be, I mean, what do you think the government should be doing? Like, how should, in my job, how can I support what you're trying to do?
So, yeah, I was just about to go into that. I think the most important key thing that we can do, especially for the younger generation, is to definitely educate them. Education is definitely key because if we don't have the knowledge in order to pass on this information about climate change and other environmental issues that go on into our world, people will not have the information and we won't be able to start that chain reaction. So I think it all has to go down to the educational curriculum and actually investing money into different parts of the green energy sector. So changing the K to 12 curriculum, maybe adding more using the carbon tax or carbon levy into creating more programs or making scholarships and grants for people, especially in Alberta, because we're so heavily dominated by the oil and gas industry. Regarding our 50-year goal, do you think, strictly from a government standpoint, do you think this is too ambitious or maybe not ambitious enough for especially some place like Alberta?
So I am an ambitious person, and I think if you don't have goals, then you don't get anything done. And it's interesting, when I had to come up with work with the provinces and Indigenous peoples to come up with our climate plan, we had a target. And the good thing about a target, it means that you actually have to say, okay, what are you going to do in the building sector? What are you going to do with transportation? What are you going to do to reduce your emissions? And when I was in at the climate discussions this year, last year, we presented our long-term plan. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's how do we go from where we are now in a way that we're moving to a low carbon future? Because if you don't do this, if you don't put the plan in place over the long term, you're not going to make the short term changes that you need to get there. So I think it's ambitious, but I think it's totally doable. And I think it's these things that we're already seeing. So I say that the market has moved. And what does that mean? It just means that people realize that we can do things better. So you could get an electric car. I just tried a minivan, the first ever minivan produced in Windsor, Ontario. That's a hybrid electric, plug-in electric minivan. So you can charge your minivan at home and not use any gas. Like, why don't we imagine that we can do things like that? Why don't we reimagine how we build our homes? But we need to be talking about this. And as you say, we need to be educating people, certainly young people, but we also need to be educating older people. Because often older people are like, whoa, this sounds like it's going to cost money. And I'm like, well, if we don't do it, it's going to cost us a lot more money. And it's an opportunity. So I think the education piece is really important. But I love that you're ambitious, Grace. We have to be ambitious. It's our planet.
Amen. All right. So thank you so very much, Grace. And we have some amazing action that's happening on Twitter. We want to keep everybody tweeting and having that going, and we're going to bring that in a second. But what we are going to bring in first is our friend Coralie from La Poudrière in Quebec to tell us about sustainable transportation, les transports durables. Coralie, over to you.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Coralie Charland, je viens de Drummondville et je vais vous présenter nos idées pour rendre le transport durable. Le problème, c'est qu'il y a présentement 1,2 milliard de voitures dans le monde entier qui produisent environ 7,2 milliards de tonnes de dioxyde de carbone. On prévoit que d'ici 2035, il y en aura 2 milliards. En 2014, au Canada, il y avait 662 véhicules pour chaque 1000 personnes, ce qui excède même la Chine qui en avait seulement 205 par 1000 personnes. Comme par exemple à Drummondville, la plupart des courses se font en se servant de la voiture, même des courses à la banque pour se rendre aux activités ainsi qu'à l'école. Le lien au changement climatique, c'est que 35% des émissions de gaz à effet de serre dans le monde sont relâchées par le transport, majoritairement par les voitures à usage personnel. Les voitures continuent de relâcher le dioxyde de carbone même quand ils ne roulent pas. La photo à la gauche est une photo d'un matin typique sur les routes dans la région de Toronto. Toutes les personnes utilisent leur voiture pour se rendre au travail le matin. Je trouve ça normal qu'il y en ait autant quand ça fait autant de pollution dans l'air et que ça prend beaucoup de temps à cause du trafic. Le transport public, c'est un cercle vicieux parce que le gouvernement ne peut pas justifier les dépenses d'argent pour améliorer les systèmes de transport. Donc, les citoyens n'utilisent pas le système de transport parce qu'ils sont pas efficaces, parce que c'est trop cher et il y a beaucoup d'inconvénients. Nous avons pensé à 3 solutions pour rendre les transports durables. La première, c'est qu'il y ait plus d'accès pour les cyclistes et piétons. La deuxième serait d'éliminer la marche au ralenti. Puis la troisième serait d'encourager l'innovation et la technologie verte. La première solution, c'est plus d'accès pour les cyclistes et les piétons. Il faudrait offrir des mesures initiatives pour motiver les gens à utiliser les transports publics, à marcher et à faire du vélo, comme par exemple donner un montant pour chaque kilomètre marché ou à vélo par personne. Élargir les trottoirs pour favoriser la marche pour se rendre au travail ainsi qu'à l'école et construire des pistes cyclables sécuritaires dans toutes les villes et que ce soit des pistes séparées de la circulation automobile. La deuxième solution serait d'éliminer la marche au ralenti, de bâtir nos communautés en priorisant les ronds-points et non les feux de circulation. L'avantage des ronds-points, c'est que c'est moins cher, il y a moins d'électricité utilisée, il y a moins de marche au ralenti des voitures et de prohiber la marche au ralenti dans toutes les provinces. La troisième solution serait, c'est d'encourager les innovations et la technologie verte. Il faudrait subventionner la production et l'achat des voitures électriques afin de créer des emplois dans le secteur vert et d'accroître la vente des voitures électriques. Il faudrait aussi installer beaucoup plus de bornes de recharge pour les véhicules électriques le long des autoroutes et dans les villes. Merci de m'avoir écouté.
Merci Coralie. Et Madame Ministre.
Alors, je sais qu'on n'a pas beaucoup de temps, j'ai parlé un peu trop avant, mais j'aimerais dire, Coralie, de très bonnes idées parce que c'est certain que le domaine du transport, on doit faire beaucoup. Moi, je suis une grande cycliste, alors moi, j'aime beaucoup aller sur ma bicyclette et je pense qu'on doit faire que c'est plus facile pour aller et plus sécuritaire pour aller en bicyclette parce qu'on veut que tout le monde choisisse d'aller de marcher ou de prendre la bicyclette ou des transports en commun. Aussi, je suis tout en accord qu'on doit encourager l'innovation et la technologie verte. Et au Québec, je dois donner un grand shout-out parce que le Québec fait beaucoup sur ce sujet pour les véhicules électriques. Je vois beaucoup de progrès. Je sais c'est une grande préoccupation pour le ministre de l'Environnement et on travaille ensemble sur cet enjeu. Mais je pense que c'est tellement important et j'apprécie beaucoup la présentation.
Merci.
Et parfait, merci beaucoup. Now, Gordon, do we have time for the presentation on waste, or do you want to go right across to Keisha in British Columbia?
Let's just take a couple of minutes and do the waste one, but we'll have to keep that short, and then we'll go to Keisha, and then a final comment back to you, Minister McKenna.
Absolutely. So let's go to Victor joining us from SLAM, the Sustainable Living Academy in Manitoba. Victor, over to you. Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'll try to keep it quick. First, before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that here in Winnipeg, we are on Treaty 1 land, home of the Métis. Sorry, I just gotta wait for mine to. Okay. All right. So reducing waste. It's back. Yeah. All right. Okay. If food wastage were to be a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter, behind China and the United States. This was a really telling thing for a lot of us in SLAM, for sure, to see that. Just it really reflects like the numbers right to our face of how dangerous like our levels of food waste are. More than $31 billion of food is wasted every year in Canada alone, and so if a country of 36 million people has that many billions of dollars worth of food wasted, just imagine the scale of countries like the United States and the entire rest of the world. All right, okay, so here in Winnipeg and SLAM, we did a school waste audit where basically we went through our waste at the school of a day and just kind of critiqued and organized everything into categories. Keep in mind, all of this waste was going to be going to the landfill. And what we found out was that out of the waste here, about 33% of it should have been composted and 17% should have been recycled. This was an unbelievably telling thing for all of us, especially, and it really showed us how at our school food waste was going to be the issue, because of the fact that it's absolutely unbelievable how 50% of what was going to the landfill from our school alone shouldn't have been, and that was really, really haunting for a lot of us. The UN Sustainable Development Goals include reducing food waste by 50% by the year 2030. This goal is incredibly ambitious for sure, but we've shown that the legislation required and the public effort required does work, and it is very much realistic if we were to really put our whole focus on reducing food waste, as it is such a big issue, as well as waste in general. Some of the key strategies for achieving this would be, number one, and in my opinion most importantly, educating young people on the issue. A lot of students, after we presented our assembly, on our findings, were very shocked to hear that food waste has anything to do with climate change. And it's amazing that we need to make sure that people are aware of how big of an issue food waste is for climate change and waste in general. Providing composting programs in our communities, such as sidewalk pickup, school-wide composting, and composting options, whether it be in restaurants or in big public spaces, very crucial. Regardless of how much people know about food waste and what they need to do, if they don't have a place to do it, then they're not going to. Educating citizens to better shopping habits, reducing food waste, and using home compost bins. As the minister said, it's not just important to make sure that the youth know, but for that older people, not just like elderly people, but people in general are aware of the issues surrounding food waste. Funding municipal curbside compost pickup. This is something that here in Winnipeg we don't do. We're actually the only major city in Canada that doesn't practice citywide composting, which is a major issue here. So one of the big solutions for that would be making sure the people in Winnipeg are educated on it and they do it themselves, since there is no citywide program to do it. As well as making it mandatory for companies and corporations to compost their waste, especially in restaurants. In France, for example, they have done this where supermarkets can no longer just throw their food. They have to look for a way to give it to somebody else who may need it, which has been very successful in France, as well as in Quebec, where without legislation, grocery stores have banded together to send unused food to food banks. I think it's unbelievable to think that we could not only reduce food waste, but help those in need as well. So as long as people are educated on the topic, such as in Quebec, legislation is not always necessary. In Quebec, it has worked incredibly well. In France, it worked incredibly well with legislation, but it also has in Quebec, where people have in general worked together to send unused products to food banks, and it's really awesome that people were able to educate themselves and make such a big difference on their own without the need of legislation.
Great presentation, Victor. Minister, do you have any feedback for our young scientists, activist students?
Well, Victor, I'm all about science-based and evidence-based approaches. So I love the fact that you went and you took the garbage and you looked at it and that you actually found that 50% of it could have been dealt with either through recycling or through composting. That's super smart. I did not know, so I love having facts, like good facts. I did not know that if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest country. Like, that is super compelling, and I think facts matter. And I love everything you're trying to do. Maybe you should start a campaign across the country, at schools across the country, because I think students would be really interested in this. And I would say that I used to teach a course, and I remember one of my students, they had to pitch me with an idea, and it was about ugly food. And in Quebec, in France, there's this movement to, as you said, making sure that people realize just because food is ugly does not mean it isn't healthy and good to eat. So thank you, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, it ended up being the focus here because of the fact that, like, the food wastage on such a big scale is unbelievably.
Think what you could do if you do this across the country. Do this across the country. All right, we got to go to the next one. All right.
Amen.
Thanks,
Great job, Victor. Great job. So now we're going to hop across to our friend Keisha, who's joining us from Mount Baker in British Columbia. Keisha, over to you.
Hi, everyone. So once again, Minister McKenna, on behalf of Mount Baker Secondary School and all the students across the country, we thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to our presentation and engage with youth throughout Canada. It warms my heart knowing that the government not only cares about saving our planet, but the government, you, care about students and student voice. Another huge thank you to the 500 students who have dedicated their time and knowledge into this project. Without you, we wouldn't be here today. Every single one of you have played an important part in this project, and it means a lot to have so many passionate students all across Canada. Together, we can create a greener planet. Today's event is not the end of this project, just the next step. We have worked hard for the past 4 months. Many classes initiated local action plans and continue to work on these now. We are completing our report. We would like to continue to work with the Government of Canada and others to address climate change. In particular, we would ask you to consider creating a youth council on climate action, a forum where youth voices are heard and where youth have active input into shaping the solutions. A youth council would serve as the focal point for all Canadian youth and would help motivate and build tomorrow's leaders on climate action. Thank you.
Minister, do you have any final words for us before we sign off? Any response to Keisha?
Well, I think, Keisha, that's a really great idea. In fact, we do have a youth program. So we have youth ambassadors, some that are on the Prime Minister set up a youth council, but we also have a really big group of young people who really care about climate change. So we need to get, I totally agree with you, a youth council that is focused on climate action, that you guys can be my ambassadors out there, coming up with ideas, pushing people, dragging them along, inspiring them. Look, all I want to say is you guys are awesome. Alors, je suis vraiment heureuse parce qu'au Canada, nous savons que les changements climatiques, c'est réel, on doit agir. In Canada, we know climate change is real. We know we need to act. And what makes me so happy is that everyone's acting together and actually just coming up with great ideas and just getting on with it. Because I think you can spend a lot of time talking about how sad it is that the climate is changing, or it's just overwhelming, we can't do anything. We just need to get down to business. We just need to act, and we need to do it together. And, you know, it can start at your school, it can be in your community, it can be with your faith group, it can be with your friends. I don't care. It just, we need to all be doing this together. So really, really excited about your ideas. It really does make me really happy because sometimes this job can seem really hard, but then I remember that everyone's in it together. And I have lots of awesome young people who care passionately about the planet because you guys know it's about your future. So thank you, merci beaucoup. Je suis tellement heureuse de parler avec vous. Continuez la discussion à vos écoles. Make sure you continue this conversation. It does not stop here. And thank you to Green Learning. It's pretty amazing that you did this. What I love about technology is that we can reach so many people. Next time I want to aim for like 5,000 or 5 million. See, I am ambitious. And make sure we get more Indigenous youth and just get everyone part of this conversation because it's just so important.
Amen. Amen. Minister, thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're going to do. I want everybody all across the country right now, you're all going to unmute your microphones. We're going to give the minister a round of applause. We're going to give all you youth a round of applause. And we're going to take this in terms of action to make a difference. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, unmute and go. Got a screenshot of kids in British Columbia.
Okay, the last thing I have to say is go Sens go! I hope you're watching the Senators.
Yay, go Senators. Now, to wrap up, we'll pass the microphone back to our friends at Green Learning to bid us all adieu. Mary, over to you.
Thanks, Terry. And thank you, Minister McKenna, for being here today and providing such great feedback to the students on their action plan. And thank you especially to all of the youth and your teachers who worked so hard this year on this project. Green Learning is going to continue to work with you over the next few weeks to complete the report and get it ready for sharing. And we plan to continue to support you to share the report widely in your communities and nationally. We will also continue to support your work on local action projects. So congratulations to all of you on this incredible achievement. You are playing a key role in shaping a low carbon and prosperous future for all Canadians for the next 150 years. Merci, Ministre McKenna, d'être ici aujourd'hui et de fournir de si bons commentaires aux étudiants sur leur plan d'action. Et merci à tous les jeunes et leurs enseignants qui ont travaillé si fort sur ce projet cette année. Green Learning continuera de travailler avec vous au cours des prochaines semaines pour compléter le rapport et nous vous aiderons à le partager au niveau local et à l'échelle nationale. Nous continuerons également à appuyer votre travail sur les projets d'action locale. Félicitations à vous tous sur cette incroyable réussite. Vous jouez un rôle important dans la création d'un pays à faible carbone et prospère pour tous les Canadiens au cours des 150 prochaines années. Merci. Félicitations. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Canada. Thanks, Minister.
You guys are awesome.
Goodbye, everybody. All right, ladies and gentlemen, fabulous job. To all of our friends joining us on Facebook, we're going to sign off now. We heard that challenge from the minister. Let's continue to move forward. Let's continue to take those actions in our local communities. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks, Green Learning. Thanks, Minister McKenna. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Terry. You're amazing.
Hello, Mom, on Facebook Live, by the way. Just saying hello.